Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Today we're going to talk about raging personalities. Yes, raging personalities. We're going to talk about those personalities that, well, you know what? You got to see it coming. Personalities that come out in certain situations where if you had skin in the game, you might not see people for who they truly are. And I know that the holiday season is coming up, so this is a wild, wacky type of topic, but I think that it is very important to discuss right now because it's something that you can use your entire life to understand where people are coming from and to understand how they tick. You know, if you really want to know where people are coming from and how they honestly tick, the best way to do that is to be able to hang out with them or spend time with them in a formal setting where you have nothing to lose. Let me explain that real quick. So recently I went to a board meeting of such, and I don't really have a stake in the matter. It's not one way or another for me. I could take it or leave it. You know, half of me feels like it's a waste of time, but the other half of me is just kind of interested. And a part of me knew that it was going to be a bit of a train wreck, but I was hoping that it would be a lot more positive than it was. The interesting thing, however, is that I don't seem to worry about what happens because you and I both know that what's supposed to happen will happen. The best outcome will come around. It might just take a little longer. But eventually, if people work toward the best outcome, things will happen. And it was interesting because I realized, you know, first off that, and I think most of us kind of understand that when you don't have to worry about losing anything, going to something, you can kind of sit back and enjoy it like a class. And the way I figured that out was a while back, I had an intern of mine who's ended high school. He graduated high school. And he was going to college at a big state school. And I remember he called me and he's like, oh my gosh, he moved into his dorm and he's so happy. And he's so delighted about being there and about being away from his family, I'm sure. And I was like, man, I wish I was back in school. And he goes, you should come back and get your doctorate. That's what you should do. I was like, yeah. I was like, you know, I don't have time. I don't have time to get a doctorate. I got to keep going where I'm going. But yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. I'd love to be back in school. And I got off the phone, and honestly, I was a little sad. You know, the little baby bird had left had left and taken off to college. Not really a baby bird, but you know what I'm saying. But it was more than that. It wasn't just about him. It was about me. I realized that I too wanted to go back to school. Remember that Rodney Dangerfield film, Back to School? Golly, I know it's old. It was old when I saw it the first time, but you know what? I really enjoy that movie. I enjoy that movie for many reasons and on many levels because it's hilarious and it's fun. It's the thing that we all think about doing. Going back to school, you know, not even thinking about it, having no care in the world, and just going back to school. And I think it's so awesome. So I was thinking all about that, and I was like, oh my gosh, all the joys that would be. And I started thinking about how to really think about that concept in a show and to put that into maybe even our life. And when I sat back and I thought about going to school and I reminisced my schooling and thought about all the good times and some of the bad times too. But I started thinking and I said, you know what? Isn't every minute of our day a real classroom? Isn't it when you go to school? Think about it. You're actually in a classroom inside of a classroom. So when you're in school, you're actually inside of a classroom, inside of another classroom, incubating in there because life is a class. Life is a big old classroom. And you know what? That big old classroom, there's a lot to learn and a lot to do. And I realized I don't need to be a class inside of a class, right? No, not at all. I need to recognize that my life and this journey is a class. So right now I want to talk to you about how to really understand personalities, how to see people for who they are, and how to do this with little skin off your back when you look at it from not having a stake in the matter. And so last night I attended a meeting, and there were some really wonderful people there, don't get me wrong, but I attended a meeting that I wasn't one way or another for. I was just interested to hear people come together and discuss things in an open forum. I believe that people should be allowed to discuss things, okay? And lately in this society, it seems like people are less and less allowed of saying how they feel. You got people shooting places up and doing all kinds of stuff, but when it comes to talking about how we really feel, that's wrong. That's just wrong, and we're not going to allow that to be. Well, you know what? We have certain inalienable rights, and I think that being able to say how you feel to a certain degree is good. Even when you have the boneheads repeating the same darn argument over and over again that has no validity except for the fact that they were told what to say. So let's talk about how you can find out how people tick just by going to a meeting where you have little stake in the game and you can watch the issues. You can see and feel the anger. You can see the temper tantrums. You can definitely see the temper tantrums. And you can see how the accusations begin to fly. And better yet, who are throwing out the accusations? Who's staying quiet, right? Who makes massive entrances? Who makes big to-do exits? And who keeps covering their ass? We're going to talk about this today because I think this is very important, because once you master this and you start seeing how people act, you'll also see how they're going to be with anything that matters, including your issues too. So what I'm saying is you can actually go to a meeting with somebody. You can go to a meeting and watch it, and how they respond and how they act, right? How they respond and how they act is directly proportional to how they're going to respond and how they're going to act to you. It is. FYI. Just like if somebody's a gossip and they gossip all the time, guess what? They're going to gossip about you too. FYI, sorry to tell you this. Sorry to pull that out on you. Pull that old carpet out from under your feet and make you fall down on the ground. Wah, wah. Seriously. If they gossip about other people, sure to hell they're going to gossip about you. So the way that they treat a situation that is quite amicable and quite equal directly relates to, one, finding out how their mind works. Interesting, right? Finding out how their mind works. The second thing is that you can find out anger, stress level. You can also find out what people are hiding and how they truly feel and what's really up their sleeve. And later on, you can extrapolate that to anything that you were thinking about doing with these people, because you can realize that that's the way they're going to play the game every single time, because that's their game. Okay? Honestly, FYI, to everybody listening to Perspectives right now, you know what? That's life. Most people don't have different ways of doing things, honestly. Most people have one way of doing something, and they regurgitate that every single time they have to act. I know. It's lame, and it's boring, and it's definitely short-minded. Sure, I agree with that too. However, that's the way most people operate, okay? And that's why I'm talking about this tonight, because I think a lot of times we question who feels what way, but better yet, why. I also think that sometimes we take things personally, right? We take things personally, how people treat us, but when you step back and you see them react in a situation outside of anything to do with you, you can begin to see how this is something that they do all the time. Let's begin talking about showmanship. Good old showmanship. I am a stickler for showmanship because it's one of those things that can really get you off target. There's a reason why they call it showmanship. Okay, it's like something you do. You know, it's like showmanship. You know, what's your showmanship? And I think it's cool because sometimes to me, showmanship is a complete and utter put on. It's a put on. It's an attitude. It's an outfit. It's an attitude wrapped up in an outfit, wrapped up in a riddle, wrapped up in a gum wrapper that should have been thrown away. Showmanship is always an interesting thing because it can be for the good and it can be for the bad, but it can definitely be used to intimidate people. Intimidation is one factor of showmanship, right? Power, intimidation are all factors of showmanship. You know, there are other people that have showmanship that's more like leadership, you know, responsibility. But again, showmanship to me is kind of a put on. And when you're in situations where you can recognize when people are using showmanship, especially to power up, you need to be aware of that. Because there's more going on under the surface than you realize. You know, it was interesting. Showmanship begins with the entrance. Showmanship begins with the entrance. So I ended up walking into this meeting about 5 minutes late, and my entrance was very quiet. I didn't speak. I was pointed to a chair that I should sit in, and I quietly went to that chair. That to me was, I'm not trying to mess up the meeting. I'm not trying to get in the way. I'm not trying to prove my power by walking in a certain way. I'm also not trying to cower down in a certain way. And I'm not trying to show disrespect by walking and talking and smiling and laughing and yada, 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 and cutting it up. However, other people walked in with various different showmanships. And I'd like to give an example right now. Picture this. Person's about 30 to 35 minutes late for a meeting that's supposed to be about an hour. It ended up being about an hour and a half, but that's the way it is. You could see them cross over from the lobby into the room. When they made their entrance, they wildly flew open the door, okay? They made a grand entrance, walked by, looked at everybody, and ended up, instead of sitting down on a chair, sat down on an actual piece of furniture, sat down on a credenza, sat down on a piece of actual furniture that you are not supposed to sit on for all various reasons. Everybody else is sitting in a chair, you got it. So automatically your entrance is very strong, very powerful, very intimidating. And then on top of that, you're doing something that most people don't do because they don't feel like it's the right thing to do by sitting on the furniture. Okay? Interesting. And I thought that was very interesting. I don't think anybody really caught that because people were too much involved in their own issues, what they had at stake. They were too involved in accusations, temper tantrums, arguing, fighting, to see what's really truly going on. I also thought that the dress approach for several different people was very interesting. Depending on the type of response and depending on the way that somebody was dressed also showed showmanship. And I thought that was interesting because any time in life when you're able to see a group of people that you know and able to be around them in a situation that doesn't hurt you or doesn't help you, it's just kind of in the middle, you're able to see people's personalities for what they are. Because, see, the thing is think about this. When it has to do with you, the way they react, you take it personally. You take it totally and utterly personal. You know why? Because that's just the way we are. For example, if you were trying to run for that board and people told you to run because they would vote for you, but later on down the road, after everybody voted and you were able to see the votes, you realized that certain people did not vote for you. You would then know that there was something amok, especially when somebody tells you to run. Well, if you fast forward and if you see a meeting from the outside perspective and realize where people are at, you can realize personality traits. Example, people that are avoiding, they're avoiding confrontation. You have a lot of people that want to avoid confrontation because they just don't want to deal with it. Don't want to deal with it. And I totally understand that, because when somebody's put in a position where they have to make a choice and they know that maybe there might be some pain on that other end if they choose differently, I get it. But it's better to know that. And so let's talk about taking sides. Let's talk about the concept of taking sides. I think it's interesting how a lot of people are very emphatic with their stance, right? They're very emphatic with their stance, making assumptions, maybe even possibly regurgitating assumptions, and then knowing that there's somebody behind it. I think in life nowadays, we know when somebody might almost be acting out for someone else. I like to call that a hand puppet. That hand puppet was told what to say and when to say it. And so they're going to say what they were told to say, and they're going to say it no matter what, no matter how crazy or how out of control or how misinformed they sound, they're going to say it. You know, it's like every argument out there. You hear people talking about gun control. And there's like so many arguments out there. Well, they're going to take away all the guns and all this stuff. And so far, I'm not for one way or another. But I mean, most of the limitations are just like a 2 or 3 day wait period. I mean, that to me is not a real big deal if you're wanting to get a gun. I mean, you know, unless there's another reason for it. I mean, most of the time, you know, you can wait a week. I mean, even on Amazon, if you got Prime shipping, you got to wait 2 days. I mean, come on. Right? And I think we have to look at the real issues behind things and realize that a lot of times people do make assumptions. They make assumptions. They allow fear to be part of their mind. And so it's that whole fear-mongering thing where they make assumptions and then they're fearful about a slippery slope effect taking place and then something else happening. Or they're being told something and so they're regurgitating assumptions that somebody else has made. And they were told. I was told this, I was told that, right? And we hear that a lot often. Think about the telephone game. Remember that where you were kids and, you know, you put your hand in the ear and you said something in one kid's ear and then the other kid had to repeat what you said and then the other kid had to repeat in the ear of the other kid what you said and just kept on going. And by the end of the time, there's like, even if there was like 5 or 6 kids, like what you said had nothing to do with the end result, right? Unless people were really, really paying attention. And most of the time, if you're being told misinformation, right? If you're being told misinformation, you're never going to know the truth. The only way that you'll be told the truth and know the truth is when you do your own research. You can't just accept things at face value and say, oh, well, this is the way it is. This is the mandate from the higher masses, from the higher people. This is the mandate from God. And I gotta, you know, no, God's not talking to you. This is the freaking people on a board meeting telling you what to do. And it's crazy how some of those folks in that meeting they're very highly educated, top jobs, top careers, CEOs, big time careers, but still choose to listen to someone else tell them what to do, but better yet, what to think. Because I think what to think is the biggest thing here, not what to do. Because if you tell somebody what to do, they might not want to do that because they don't want to be told what to do. But I think for the most part, people like to be told what to think. What do we have for it, Johnny? Well, you know what? I guess this is my own contest, so I'll have a swig of my Super Greens cold pressed juice right now. Because it's not about telling somebody what to do, it's about telling them what to think. Interesting. And everybody that had a temper tantrum, lost it, got up, stood up, got angry, threw stuff on the ground, all that stuff, all the people that got there were told what to think. I purposely was not told what to think. I wasn't told what to do. I said that I would give equal opportunity to listen to what had to be said, without any accusations, without any judgment calls. But what I saw in that meeting were people fighting out of self-preservation, people fighting out of fear, other people being very quiet in a fear of losing their jobs, i.e. people that are employed by the board. I saw other people trying to make changes that had given up, that had eventually gotten to the point where they had hit their head against the wall a million times, asking for permission from the board, and they were never going to get it. And they finally decided, after 2 to 3 years, I'm going to take it upon myself and try to do something. I saw the people in the power to be angry that the small people decided to rise up to bring out the fact that their voice is not heard. See, don't you see that this board meeting is a typical society issue right here? Like, this is just a microcosm of society. This is a microcosm of society. Because if you think about it, this is great. If you think about it, when you're dealing with boards of facilities, you have to realize that some people want things done one way, other people want other things done, other people want to do things completely different. But just like anything else, when there's only a few people that have power, what happens? Power goes to their head. But better yet, it becomes an ownership thing. And I understand, I'm cool with it. I mean, if I'm taking care of a property of land and I'm mowing it and I'm tilling the ground and I'm doing everything I can, and somebody comes over there and says, look at all those weeds over there, huh? Look like you've been kind of sloughing off on the job, right? I'd be like, who the hell are you talking to? I'm over here working my ass off 24/7 trying to get this done. What does that mean? But I realize that sometimes there needs to be more people working on the project, but also not to take it so personally. But I understand taking things personally if you really do your job and you love what you do. But what about taking it so personal that that every time somebody comes around, you feel like they're trying to usurp your power? And I think that's something that needs to be looked at, because if you think about certain boards and certain people with power as a microcosm of society and how people don't like the people to uprise, when people are not being heard and they tried a million times and you start getting that apathetic thing, a lot of times when people say, well, they don't go to the meetings or they're not there or they don't vote, right? That doesn't mean that you love what's going on in this country, does it? I mean, most of you don't vote because you're just so tired of the same old crap. Anybody would be. I mean, it's pathetic. It's bad. And it has gotten bad to worse. And it's not just the people we want to blame. It's every entity, right? That needs to be changed and cleaned and reformatted and created in a different way and in a different aspect. And so this meeting that I went to is just a small microcosm of the bigger picture. And so you have people challenging, basically we'll say the board, instead of the board, we'll say the government. Challenging the people to be the people in power because they want their word. They want what they have to say to get out there. But the other people are angry about it and they see it as almost a coup. Like they're trying to pull and take away their power. So what happens? The people in charge start calling all their constituents, right? All the people that they can control. All the people that they probably have something on. All the people that they know need them for something. You know what I'm saying? In this case, it would be like a small repair in your condominium. But in reality, it could be you need a kickback from your business. Maybe you're drilling oil and you're kind of sloppy at it. Okay? And you need to cover up some stuff with the EPA. That could be a position, right? So think about this as like kind of a small microcosm of the bigger deal. And then you have people up there that are trying to be democratic. They're doing everything they can to try to get the word out. And there's temper tantrums arising, their argument. People are trying to get them off target. And people are taking sides. And I think that's interesting because in a situation where there shouldn't be any sides taken, why are we taking sides? For example, let me give a good example. And this is just an example that just came to my mind this 1 second. I have a dog walker for Buddy. Buddy the Bull Terrier. Buddy the miniature Bull Terrier. He's white with a little spot around his eye. He looks just like the target dog. When I work long hours, so during the day, when I'm not home, I have somebody walk them. Now, I don't just have one dog walker. I have a dog walker on one day and a dog walker on another day, right? They take turns. Okay, so there's 2 different dog walkers. And the reason for that is that the one dog walker is a great lady, but she's got a lot of dogs to walk. And she has a lot of hours that she goes to, and she goes on vacation. So at one point in time, guess what? I had to get a second dog walker to fill in the gaps. And I started liking dog walker number 2 because I think she's a nice lady too. But I didn't hate on dog walker number 1. Okay, it wasn't like, well, now I'm in love. I broke up with Mary and now I'm in love with Jennifer and I hate Mary. Well, no. That's not the way the world works. I mean, if you have any intelligence level whatsoever, you realize that you can love Mary and Jennifer, right? Some people do that all the time. Some people are married to both. Certain states. Not advocating that, just saying just the truth. And, it's all about more answers, less questions here on Perspectives. But think about it. So, I got one dog walker, and I hire another one for certain days because the other dog walker couldn't be there, which is great. And eventually we figured out a way to integrate both of them throughout the week, and everybody's happy. So, I didn't have to fire one or get angry at one or kind of take sides or make accusations or have a temper tantrum and say how I can't get rid of the other one and bringing in another one would just cripple the system. And to me, checks and balances aren't a bad thing. To me, checks and balances aren't a bad thing when you introduce somebody into a system that's being run by a small group. It's not bad to introduce another couple of players into the team. I've found that especially when it's a job that is not being paid. Let me explain that too. Just like Congress, just like the state Congress, just like the House in your state, just like the representatives in your state, just like mayors, various mayors in different cities and all that stuff, there's no salary. So it's okay. And I'm not going to talk about kickbacks or anything like that, but I'm saying in this situation, these people are not making a salary. And so for other people who would want to volunteer, it seems like that's okay. It seems like that's okay. I mean, I'm cool with other people volunteering. If you want to give your time and talent, then why push people out who want to actually support and want to actually help? And that's the question I have, is that's when I wonder about government and all, is that when you have people out there that want to help, that want to have input, that want to be on special committees, that want to change things up, that want to help the community, why not? What's wrong with that? Is it because it's taking away from your power? Is it because you feel that your power is being taken away? Is it because you feel insecure? Is it because you feel scared of what might come out? Or is it more or less the fact that you want to be in charge and you don't like anybody else taking that power away? I think it's interesting when people take sides, especially when they have little of the correct information. Isn't it funny when somebody starts arguing with you, and this happens a lot lately, especially with politics. When somebody starts arguing a lot with you, you didn't even start it. They just started it, and you're like, well, I don't know. And then they start going off, but they have none of the facts correct. Like, they're kind of, I'd use the word they've been bamboozled by somebody. Like, somebody just told them a bunch of stuff to think, and they just went on and thought it, and so there they go. And so they go around telling everybody, putting it on their Facebook page, their updates about something crazy, tweeting it. All this stuff, and you're like, the Pope never said that. So-and-so never did that. But you cannot tell them to save their life what the truth is. And I think that's interesting because we are surrounded by people who do not know the truth. And instead of finding it for themselves, they are told what to do. They make an ass out of themselves. And it might take them years to figure it out. But eventually it's going to come full circle, and whatever favor or whatever they were doing isn't going to come all the way back around. Last but not least, I want to talk about, in situations like this, the ass kissers and the assholes. The ass kissers and the assholes are always a very interesting thing because guess what? When you're kissing someone else's ass, you're protecting someone else. Why are you kissing their ass? Why are you protecting them? What is the reason for that? Also, some people choose to protect their own ass, to cover their own ass. So, if you're either covering someone else's or you're covering yours. If you're covering someone else's, right, Why would you do that? You're covering up someone else's because you have involvement, 1. 2, you have a stake in it. There's a stake in the matter, right? Or 3, you made an agreement, okay? Or 4, you owe them. You owe them. Or you're just friends to the end, and you don't care. You don't care what they do. Even if they killed somebody, you wouldn't tell on them. You would help, you would help do whatever. Even in the midst of the fact that your friend's a murderer, you would still go on and help bury the body with them and hope that nobody finds out that you murdered somebody. Okay? Some people will go to the end with their friends. And that's a possibility too. And not even look at evidence, not even look at reality, because they're friends to the death, to the end. And there are some people out there, and I commend some people for that. However, when it becomes illegal and it becomes elusive, and when you start hiding stuff, that's not that good. That's kind of something that you need to go to CODA meetings, or you need to figure out why you're going to that extent to be that person's friend. When in reality, what are they doing for you? And I think it's interesting because when we protect somebody or cover someone's ass, we do it because we're either getting something out of it, we're getting something in return, we made an agreement, they have something on us. And that's a big one too, is that when somebody has dirt or something on you, you will cover their ass to the end of time. You will walk around God's green creation saying how wonderful they are no matter who they are. Okay? You will defend them in any situation, and you will defend them against anybody. No matter how crazy you look, no matter how deranged you sound, right? You will do whatever you have to do to fulfill your obligation, especially when that person is sitting right behind you. That to me is hilarious, is that when you see people popping off and defending people at no end for whatever they defend them for, and the person's behind them quiet, looking all stoic. And again, they have the showmanship. Kind of the asshole attitude showmanship, where I'm sick and tired of all you, and you're lucky that I'm actually in here with you, you peasants, you little people, you people, I want to spit on you people. That's what these people are thinking. And so then you have these people that are literally kissing their ass all over town. Never seen anything like it. I mean, it was a fest. I mean, I wanted to get some popcorn. I really wanted some popcorn. But I kind of wanted to drink, too, but I knew that wasn't a good idea. But a popcorn would have been great, like a popcorn and maybe some candy corn, even some reindeer corn. Some reindeer corn, like mixed in with that popcorn. I would have had a stomachache real bad. My teeth would have hurt. But it was like watching an exhibition. It was like watching a match. I would have liked to have moved my chair just a little bit, but I was in a great spot where I could see everybody. So that was kind of like watching theater in the round. It was like watching theater in the round. And it was interesting how 2 by 2 people were sitting together, and you could see who was enlightened and who knew what they were talking about, because most of those people didn't speak. And the very few times that somebody did that knew what they were talking about, people tried to discredit them, even though the truth was obvious. So when we talk about the ass kissers and the asshole, a lot of times, they want something back in return. And a lot of times, too, they're in cahoots together. They're in cahoots. Or they were promised something in return. Now, whether or not that'll be delivered is to be determined. Our own government is suffering from issues right now, dealing directly with things that we have promised that we didn't deliver. And unfortunately, all of us are suffering for that right now. The last thing you want is to tell somebody and to promise somebody something, and you don't do it. You blow it off. You let it go. You screw it over. And then guess what? Somebody's going to call you on it. And when they call you on it, it's not good. The least of the worst could happen is they call you on it and you realize they're a lying sack of. But other than that, for the most part, people have retaliation. And it's interesting because when people are in cahoots too, it's like, it's like the old days, when you had your drinking buddies, you're going out, your partying buddies. I mean, y'all are all in cahoots. You'd cover each other's butt to the end of time, okay? No matter what. You're in it to win it. Okay, anybody have anything bad to say? Come talk to me about so-and-so. You got something to say about them? I'll beat the crap out of you. See, remember back in the day, that's how it was. And now it's kind of like the same thing. And maybe it's almost like a type of a mafia, right? Where we're going to stick together and we're going to unhinge people and tell them why they shouldn't do this, because we're going to give them a fear and a scare tactic that's going to reign within them. It's going to be so scary and so fearful to them that guess what? We're going to get them exactly where it hurts, and we're going to scare the crap out of them. I think a lot of times, too, people believe that they'll be helped in return for something. So even when, let's just say that the people in power hadn't actually reached out to somebody, but they're in the same room together, and that other person steps up to the plate and makes a comment in front of everybody and looks back at those people, I believe to some degree either they were already in cahoots or they believe that they're going to get help with something if they side with them, or they were told that they'll get help with something, or they're going to ask for help after doing what they did. And I think that's always an interesting measure because, you ask for help no matter what. And I think that's interesting to see what people will do, what position they'll put themselves in, hopeful that they'll get a kickback or help or something or special treatment, really special treatment that other people won't get. And then what else about the payoff in the end? There's a payoff in the end. Or sometimes there's not. Sometimes there's lies and deceit. And that's where a lot of people get hurt, but it's kind of their own karma, right? So you got a lot of people out there that do something for a payoff. And people will promise a big payoff, but in the end, right, they don't pay off their debts, right? And so you have these people that did this stuff for a payoff, and it's not maybe 5, 3, 6, 12 months later that the person finds out that they're not going to do what they said they were going to do. That's when the person comes around the other people and begins to want to get back involved with them. But the other group of people don't feel comfortable with them because they saw them show their ass, right? And that's the way that life works. So if you think about that meeting as society, you have people that'll step up to the plate and say the truth no matter what trouble they can get into, no matter what somebody can do or say about them. And I saw that happen with 4 different people. Then you have people that step up that were there either put in place as a red herring or put in there by the leaders to be to try to take down the progress at its knees in its first meeting. You had that too. And that was more prevalent than anything. And that kind of was... It was kind of like a steamroller approach meshed up in a joking approach. Okay? Then you had people sitting strategically next to people that one of the leaders had probably told somebody to sit next to so-and-so or what have you. There was somebody that had already had a temper tantrum sitting next to somebody that was interested in listening to what had to be said. Same for both sides of the room. And it was interesting because there was only a few people that brought up comments that I thought were intelligent comments. For the most part, I heard a bunch of people either kissing other people's ass, kissing their own ass, trying to save their own job, trying to save their own position, trying to bolster and show up things and situations. Like, for example, I thought it was funny, the Showmanship guy. The one that came in and sat on the furniture instead, on a credenza instead of a chair. So he is good friends with somebody that's in the power to be, right? And so it was very interesting. He, at one point in time, got up to go to the bathroom. And you can see from where I was sitting, I had the bird's eye view of every single person in the room. I could see everybody and everything that was going on. And most people didn't have that option. That's why it was like theater in the round for me. Theater in the round. Because I was able to see things. I was able to see everybody for what they were doing and what they were saying and how they were feeling in their looks and their attitude and everything else and their anger and their fists and of rage. And I see this guy walk past to go to the bathroom. Most people can't see behind a wall because they are placed in front of that wall. And I could actually see behind the wall. So I knew that he wasn't going to the bathroom. Indeed, he was actually going to text this other man what this other man should be thinking or talking about or what he should stand up to say. And I knew that was about to happen. So I focused on the other man and I watched him and I saw him place his phone in a certain place. But then when he realized I was watching him, he could not look at the phone because I think he knew that I was watching him. And I think he even knew more than that I was watching both of them. And I was the only one in that room watching them. And it was interesting because he could not look at that call or look at that text while I was watching him. So he missed the position of being able to interrupt or to say whatever he's going to say because I was watching him and feeling that. Soon later, the other man walks out of the bathroom, which he had never gone to the bathroom. He was in there for a good 10 minutes. I mean, he was probably texting, waiting for the guy to respond, but he couldn't because I was watching him the whole time. And about 10 minutes later, they all left in an abrupt leave before the meeting was over, which I thought was quite funny too. It was like, okay, so now you're going to, not only are you going to be rude and leave before the meeting's over, you're going to like huff out and leave. And so my point of this story, my point of the theater and the round, and the point of life as a classroom is to understand that most people have an attitude that aren't the people that you want to be spending time with, perhaps. People want to preserve their place in society, and some people will do it at every measure, every way, any way they possibly can. And what I'm saying to you is this: pick your friends wisely. Pick the people you surround yourself with wisely. Pick the people around you wisely, the ones that you actually like to be around. When I walked into that room, I'm an empath and I can figure out things very easily. I felt like anger, I felt resentment, I felt hostility. My stomach kind of was knotted. I felt like I was getting acid reflux. That's a sign of this ain't worth it. That's a sign of this ain't worth it. And if you're filling your life with a lot of this ain't worth it crap, you want to rethink it right now because it's not going to get any better. It's just going to get worse. It's going to get worse because it's not going to be fulfilling. That to me was a freaking 3-ring circus that I wished I would have had reindeer corn and popcorn for. But any more than an hour and a half, and I would have been, praying to God if I could get that time back. And some advice today for the Perspectives listeners, for my listeners that I love so dearly. Surround yourself with people that care about you and you care about them. Surround yourself with people that have the same values as you do and value things the same way. 3, surround yourself with people who are justified or honest or truthful. Don't try to scare you or fear you into doing something that you don't want to do. And last but not least, realize that a lot of times when you're dealing with people who are passive-aggressive or they're angry or they're hostile, it's not really about you. It's their persona. It's how they are. And I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying know it and move away from it. The last thing you want your life to be around is hostile, passive-aggressive, negative people who suck the life out of the room. And their only interest in life is to be in charge. And for all of you who are in a relationship right now, a love relationship where it's a power trip, think about it. It's not going to get any better. For all you in friendships that you feel like the other person doesn't care that much because they're never there when you need them, but you're always there when they need you. It's a power trip. Think about it. Think about finding and putting yourself in the position of being loved and being appreciated, right? That's all that matters. I mean, this 3-ring circus over here is the way it is, but inside that 3-ring circus, there's got to be 1 or 2 people that you can trust, that trust you and you trust them, and you have the same beliefs. I got a great show coming up for you next, and check out AshleyBurgess.com, Ashley, BERGES.com. Get some more information on me on my website, and I got some great blogs and some articles up there, some shows as well. I'm loving Spreaker. I'm loving this app, and if you have any thoughts on some ideas on some shows that you want me to talk about from either a therapist position, from a personal position, or from a coach, let me know. Write it on the comments here. If you like the show, write it on the comments. I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to hear your ideas. And also, if you have something you'd like to say, I'd love to put you on the show. Stay tuned because Perspectives, your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back. This time I'll be back in 3 shakes.